everyone, this time I'm going to teach about research ethics. Because of COVID-19 cases, we could not invite a guest speaker and lecture in front of a lot of students. We shared our own video about how to use research notes. I'll share student feedback right away, but I felt the need for education a lot. Someone says not to teach but make to learn, and I'll motivate you so that you can be interested in research ethics. Feedbacks after the upload of how to use research note. 83 students participated on the survey. Thank you so much. When asked whether they knew how to use the research notes before watching this video, 96.3% answered that they did not know or knew some of the contents, and only 0.7% of the respondents said they already knew all the contents of the video, which was extremely rare. Also, 97.6% of the respondents answered that our own video about how to use research note was helpful. Some students disliked the video since it was so strict, but I think it was helpful to a lot of students. Everyone, I got encouraged from the students' feedback. Someone cheered me up or someone supported me, especially for research ethics. There were some opinions that they need videos about it. Last time I gave some YouTube links, there were some response that it is already enough, but some wanted videos, and in the case of research notes, there was a feedback that it would be more convenient if they were given in handouts. This time we are making handouts and preparing videos. Also, to encourage the participation of students, I'm planning on making the research violations form theatrical. Yes, the unfair authorship of young people has been an issue. The daughter of Joe, former Prime Minister, was accused of corruption in the entrance exam when it was revealed that she was the first author in the medical paper when she was in high school. Since then, it has become a big issue for professors to include their minor children as authors in their papers. Various issues have arisen, such as the standard that they must be reported in advance when a minor, child, or spouse is listed as author in a paper. In this social atmosphere, gifted schools and science high schools cannot be free, moreover. To handle the issue about unfair authorships of youths, high schools, and responsible leaders, institutions must have data demonstrating that youths have contributed to the research. Out of these important things is the research notes, and most specific evidence is required, such as draft paper or an email containing the key idea, incoming and outgoing history, and equipment usage records. For these, the education of research ethics and research notes are necessary to the students. This is a case that proves the truth of the research with the evidence described before. Our school has also received multiple requests for supporting materials to determine violations of research ethics against minor co-authors. However, each time this has happened, we proved it with the final R&E report, research notes, and student emails related to the paper received and sent. Last year, there were emails sent from the draft to the finished manuscript that exactly matched the paper, proving that there was no violation of the research ethics. This is the second case of proof of the truthfulness of the research. In the case of the son of Professor of KSAE, he published his paper as the first author of a domestic SCI paper when he was in high school. Fortunately, there are 2 research notes and NMR data with his own handwriting, which proves the truth of the research. It is very important to write and keep research notes. Now, I'll tell you about the research ethics, education system, and efforts of the KSAE. In order to educate future researchers on the importance of field records and the necessity of research ethics, the KSAE Research Note Guidelines were established in 2020, last year, and in the 2020 Research Note Writing, Management, Utilization Best Practice Contest hosted by KSAE won the grand prize in the institutional category. In addition, we are preparing to revise the research ethics guidelines established in 2016 for this year in 2021. Guidelines related to the inappropriate use of copyright are provided in Article 5, Paragraph 5 of the KSAE Research Ethics Guidelines. Unfair authorship refers to not granting authorship of a paper to a person who has made scientific and technological contribution to the research content or results without a justifiable reason, or to a person who has not made scientific and technological contributions for reasons such as gratitude or courtesy to the author of the paper. Now, there is an example as an illustration. Since you are usually close, if you didn't analyze this, you could suggest to put your friend's name at your paper. However, in this case, it is correct to put in and acknowledgement part. Let's recap the qualifications of the authors. A person who has made a substantial intellectual contribution to a published research result, or a person who has written a draft of a paper or made critical revisions to the important parts of the paper, and a person who finally proves the paper to be published afterward, usually an advisor or an investigator. And simply because they provided research data or technical support, we should not put them as an author, but state the achievement with an acknowledgement. There are types of ineligible authors that do not satisfy for the author's qualifications mentioned earlier. There are gift authors, coast authors, exchange authors, and authors of theft. The act of registering a person in the author's book for personal friendship, also known as the gift authors, was often made up of publication, but it has to be changed. Moreover, for the author who played a major role in the study, he should not be ruled out. Including researchers in the field without their permission is called the author of theft, and mistake was often made before due to ignorance. Now, I'll tell you about the type of authors. The first author is the author who made the greatest contribution to the study and is also responsible for writing and editing. The co-authors is all authors other than the first author. The correspondence author is responsible for contacting the journal, and this job is mostly done by the research director. The first author and the correspondence author are also called lead authors. The first author can be a first co-author, and the correspondence author can also be a co-author. However, if you believe that you have made the same contribution, you can add it to the bottom as an addition. I will tell you the guidelines of the Korea Academy of Science and the school case of violation. Article 1, paragraph 2 of the KSA's Research Ethic Guidelines presents criteria related to plagiarism and duplicate publication, duplicate presentation, conflict of interest, etc. in the field of study. Article 21 contains detailed outcome action guidelines. There were plagiarism within foreign affairs reports and curriculum homework, and there were cases where this regulation was applied and processed. The students' research course was introduced in the school magazine, which was searched on Google, and the responsible leader from UK asked to remove it. Although I did not particularly hold the student responsible, it was an incident that made me feel the need for research ethics education. When disclosing the results of a joint study, it is necessary to obtain approval from all co-researchers and agencies. Now, let me tell you about plagiarism, which is the most prevalent research cheating along with the unfair marking of author. An act that we inadvertently bring and use can be a criminal act. Our students need more education because they don't know what is wrong. Plagiarism is an academic cheat that uses other people's work without proper source indication which abandons conscience. It's equal to using someone else's intellectual property without permission. Please refer to Article 5, paragraph 1 to 6 of the KSA Research Ethic Guidelines. There are many types of plagiarism, and I think the double plagiarism and data plagiarism can be plagiarism that students can commit without knowing about it. A lot of self-plagiarism is done without being recognized, and if I publish what I published in one journal in the other journal in a different language, it is also plagiarism. Also, if you split the content or add a little bit more content from different paper and publish it in another conference or paper, this is also plagiarism. Now, let's look at the source marks. When we present in class, if you summarize what's already there, you have to reveal the source at the bottom of the PPT. The teacher always tells the students in class, but they often forget to insert the source. This is the reference part of the paper. In particular, the introduction often summarizes and refers to the background knowledge that already exists, which leads to a lot of use of bibliography. In the case of review papers, data from existing published papers can be reused for comparison even when reusing already published pictures or writing papers. In this case, even if it's your thesis, you have to indicate the source. Let's talk about forgery and modulation in Article 5, Clause 3 and Clause 4 of the KSA's Research Ethic Guidelines. This is about the integrity of research process, which is very important. Forgery is the false creation of data or research results that do not exist. This data recreation is not a study. There are some cases in which fake data is created by computer programs and published in famous journals. Modulation is the distortion of research results by tampering or deleting data randomly. In some cases, people delete noise to make the experiment data pretty, which can also be a modulate. You should remember that cheating related to the integrity of the research process, such as forgery, is a greater crime than subsequent cheating in research. Let me show you an easier explanation. In short, it is a forgery to guess and falsify the unmeasured data. In the original data, 1 hour and 3 hours are not measured, but in the published data, this is roughly estimated and reinvented. This is not research. Modulation is a plausible modification for results that claim some of the results already measured. Sometimes you do this because you don't want to experiment again. When you make experimental data, it's a lie, and furthermore, it's a criminal act. In the example, if you look at the data we have released for 3 hours, and since we got unwanted data, we have fixed it slightly. This is a modulation of the data. You cannot do this. Don't forget it's a crime. Let me show you an easier explanation. In short, it is a forgery to guess and falsify the unmeasured data. In the original data, 1 hour and 3 hours are not measured, but in the published data, this is roughly estimated and reinvented. This is not research. Modulation is a plausible modification for results that claim some of the results already measured. Sometimes you do this because you do not want to experiment again. When you make experimental data, it's a lie, and furthermore, it's a crime. For example, if you look at the data we have released for 3 hours, and since we got unwanted data, we have fixed it slightly. This is a modulation of the data. You cannot do this. Do not forget it's a crime. Let me introduce a famous forgery case. This is about Dr. Jan Hendrik John, a physicist at the Bell Institute. Between 1998 and 2001, he published 7 papers in Science and 5 in Nature. However, the paper experiment could not be reenacted. As a result of the investigation, it turned out that the data was forged by a math function. Eventually, the first author was fired from the Bell Laboratory and deprived of his doctorate. Data recreation is not a study. Violations of research ethics may result in degree deprivation and permanent expulsion from academia. There was also an incident in which the Nobel Prize winner's honor was tarnished. In addition, the publication of paper was withdrawn from Science due to the lack of reenacted experiment of synthesizing enzyme and the missing original data in the study notes. The first author was permanently expelled from the laboratory because it was judged to be forgery. Professor Arnold, the lead author, finished the work by posting a heartfelt apology. In addition to the 2 famous cases, there are many forgery cases such as Phil Tang, Haruko Obokata, and Professor Wang Osuk. We are going to hold a video contest and produce a video that recreates these into a play. I think it will increase students' interest in research ethics. We hope for your participation. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Let's